In recent years and even decades, too many people have forgotten that truth. They've forgotten that our ancestors trounced an empire, tamed a continent, and triumphed over the worst evils in history. In every generation, there have been cynics and critics who try to tear down America. It's not working too well lately. But in recent years, the problem grew worse. A growing number used their platforms to denigrate America's incredible heritage, challenge America's sovereignty, and weaken America's pride. We are not going to apologize for America. We are going to stand up for America. No more apologies. We are going to stand up for our citizens. We are going to stand up for our values. And we are going to stand up for our men and women in uniform. Because we know that a nation must have pride in its history to have confidence in its future.
I ain't like these other battle rappers. They talk too much. Saying I can't use the N-word in this battle. My nigga, I just called you.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, it's like some of us seem to believe that we are exempt from this system, that somehow the system of white supremacy doesn't apply to us, and the things that affect other black people won't affect us. Too many of us feel like if we just have a certain thing, or we achieve a certain level, or even if we come from another place, that the system of white supremacy doesn't affect us. But in reality, it affects every aspect of our lives. It affects the type of food we're able to get, to the type of medication we can get. And then we wonder why our health is so bad. The number one cause of death for us is our diets. But we have been stripped of knowledge of self. We don't even understand how our bodies work. Even the way we look at ourselves come from a white supremacist mindset. But that's what happens when it's beat into you for hundreds of years. And today, with the illusion of inclusion, even more of us think we're exempt. And we think somehow racism doesn't apply to us. But even with the passing of somebody like Kobe Bryant, you see how much the lynch law is still in effect. Look how many waited until they heard about his death to disrespect him. But as a black man, no matter how big you are, if a white woman said you did something, her word is taken as gospel. Now, we already know how much white women lie. They're notorious liars. And even though Kobe Bryant was never convicted in court, this white girl had semen from a bunch of other people in the underwear that she was still wearing. And all the evidence shows Kobe Bryant didn't rape anybody. The first thing they do is call him a rapist. But in reality, I don't think anybody should just take a white woman's word on face value based off their history alone. I know I would never take their word as gospel. But so many of us are brainwashed with that turn the other cheek stuff. And regardless of what they did to us for as long as they've been doing it, we still want to give them the benefit of the doubt. We still look for an excuse to give them a pass. But in reality, if we understood how sick they really were and the things they did to us, then we would start taking the appropriate action. In South Carolina back in 1968, just because our people were demanding to be treated like human beings, it led to the Orangeburg massacre where the police opened fire on a bunch of black teenagers. Now, it started because a bunch of college students wanted to desegregate a bowling alley, but the white owner didn't want them there. It was all white. So they organized and got more students and went back to the bowling alley. But this time the police was there already waiting on them. And when the police called in the fire trucks, the black students thought they were going to spray them with water hoses, because that's all they were seeing on TV during the 60s. So then some of the students started getting angry, and one person threw a plate through the window. So the police immediately ran in and started beating them up, hitting them with nightsticks. And they didn't discriminate. They were also beating up teenage girls. One girl had an earring ripped out of her ear. Now, some of the students did try to fight back. One person threw some liquid that hit a cop in the eyes and it injured him badly. But after it was over, at least 15 students were arrested. Now, when the word about what happened started to spread, the black community was pissed off. But the governor of South Carolina tried to blame it on black leaders like Stokely Carmichael, because this was the beginning of the Black Power movement and the end of the Civil Rights movement. But the National Guard was called in, and they brought in tanks trying to intimidate the black community. But not intimidated, the next day the students went back to the bowling alley and destroyed every white-owned business on the way. But the city officials didn't want them downtown, so they told them they would meet them on campus. And then that night, the National Guard and police were ordered to keep them on campus. And by the next night, when the police was still there, in protest, they started a bonfire. But then the police chief called in firefighters to put the bonfire out. Then all of a sudden, one person in the crowd threw a banister and hit a cop, injuring him badly. So then the police and National Guard aimed their guns and shot into the crowd for 8 to 15 seconds straight. And as the crowd was running, they were shooting people in their backs. Some of them were hit in the back of the foot as they were running. Some even got shot in the back of the head. In those few seconds, 30 people ended up getting shot. 27 were seriously injured, including paralyzed for life. And 3 people were dead. Samuel Hammond, who was a freshman studying to be a teacher, was shot in the back. Henry Smith, who was a school activist, was shot 3 times, once in the neck. And another 17-year-old high school student, Delano Middleton, was just on campus getting a snack, waiting for his mom to get off work. He had nothing to do with the bonfire. He had nothing to do with the protest at the bowling alley. He just happened to be there waiting on his mom and was killed when the police opened fire on them. Then after it was over, one of the 2 only black cops that were there ended up arresting an activist named Cleveland Sellers, and they blamed the whole thing on him. But during the shooting, 28 of the protesters that were shot were either shot in the side or the back. Nobody on campus even had a weapon, but some of the cops claimed they heard small gunfire and they were shooting in self-defense. And they also claimed to be shooting over people's heads. But if they were shooting over their heads, how'd they get shot in the bottom of their foot as they were running away? Now, the FBI did do an investigation, but of course they covered for the cops. And they never even put together a report about it. Even though 9 of the cops admitted to shooting at the crowd, and they were even charged and went to trial, they were acquitted by an all-white jury after they claimed it was self-defense. And this all-white jury reached a not guilty verdict so fast, they were told to stay in the room a little bit longer so it didn't look bad. And the only person convicted and sent to prison for this massacre was the black activist Cleveland Sellers. And that's only because the judge allowed his charges for inciting a riot to be changed from one date to another, because he wasn't even there at the date they charged him for in the first place. But essentially, the brother Cleveland Sellers, even though he didn't break any laws, it was basically the Black Power movement that was on trial, not him specifically. And he ended up getting sentenced to 1 year hard labor. And I know some of us may say that was the 60s. Those kind of things doesn't apply to us now. We feel like we're exempt. But nothing has changed from 1967 to today. In Connecticut, a mentally ill brother diagnosed with schizophrenia, Mubarak Soulemane, was shot and killed by a Connecticut state trooper. Now let's see how this brother ended up getting shot and killed by the police.
Behind me, the overpass here on Campbell Avenue in West Haven, where the shooting went down at about 5 o'clock last Wednesday afternoon. Family and friends of Mubarak Soulemane at a Martin Luther King Day celebration today. Very somber, still shaking their heads about why their son, their cousin, their nephew was shot to death. It all started as an alleged carjacking at this AT&T store in Norwalk. The suspect then making a getaway along I-95 North.
A white Hyundai Sonata. Yeah. She's in the breakdown lane. I think she might have whacked 3 or 4 cars and almost just whacked us.
State police engaged in a pursuit once Mubarak Soulemane reached Milford, and that was only because it was a carjacking at knife point that was being alleged.
Left lane, passing 40, speeds 80. Sideswipe my cruiser and trying to box him in.
Then, after a couple of close calls, the pursuit exited I-95 in West Haven on Campbell Avenue, where it ended beneath the highway overpass.
Get out of the car! Get out of the car!
Those instructions from Trooper Joshua Jackson, but the teen couldn't get out because his door was pinned shut by a cruiser. Then, outside the driver's door, Trooper Brian North yells further instructions.
Go to taser! Taser!
And seconds later, after reporting a weapon was seen, North opened fire.
But I'm asking, was the deadly force of action taken by this nervous police officer the way to go.
She was among numerous family attending a Martin Luther King Day service in New Haven, and the group included the 19-year-old victim's mother.
My son is not a criminal. They want to take the community for all their support.
Just awful to see that today at the Martin Luther King Day service. The family shared autopsy photos with me, and you could clearly see that Mubarak Soulemane was struck at least a half dozen times. You could see on an arm, his chest, and in a hand.
Now, this brother, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia, was allegedly involved in a carjacking. So the police were chasing him, and they eventually blocked him in. Now, they told his brother to get out of his car, but he couldn't because his door was pinned. It wouldn't open. And even though the cop couldn't get it open himself, they still tried to say he was resisting. So then one of the cops ended up breaking the window. And then they start tasing his brother. Now, while all this was happening, the other cop, Brian North, was standing on the driver's side of the car. And when his brother Mubarak Soulemane got tased, of course his body started moving, reacting to getting tased. But then the cop, Brian North, claimed he saw this brother was reaching for a weapon. And he claimed his brother may have pulled out a knife. And even if he did have a knife, how would that be a threat to the cop from inside the car? Especially when there's multiple cops and they all have guns. But of course, this cop said he was nervous and feared for his life. So he ended up firing 7 or 8 shots at point-blank range, hitting his brother at least 6 times, including 4 in the chest. And even though now there's supposed to be an investigation, the police already have their capes on. And of course, they're going to stay on code.
Here on Campbell Avenue in West Haven, behind me, the overpass where the shooting, I should say, took place on Wednesday afternoon. And one thing made clear today by the Clergy Association of New Haven, they say they feel this shooting was racist. Late Wednesday afternoon, 19-year-old Mubarak Soulemane was shot to death beneath the Campbell Avenue overpass by state police, who said when Soulemane displayed a weapon, later determined to be a knife, Trooper Brian North shot him.
This is all what they say. And what they say does not measure up to what we have heard.
Reverend Boise Kimber says he learned from sources that Soulemane was shot 4 times.
His skin color, they seen that, said they figured that, well, his skin color is a black, pigmentation. We can shoot him.
I really don't know what to feel. I can't believe it. It still doesn't feel real. It still doesn't feel real.
Saeed Soulemane says his brother was a second-year student at Gateway Community College and battled mental health issues, including schizophrenia, but noted he had no prior criminal record before Wednesday, when he was accused of stealing a car at knife point in Norwalk before crashing into several civilian and state police vehicles along I-95.
He was in the car. He was shot sitting down in the car. That doesn't make sense to us.
What we're asking for is that the U.S. attorney will investigate this incident.
Presently, State Police Major Crimes and the Central District Major Crimes and the New London State's Attorney's Office are handling the investigation. And State Police tell me they are aware that both the ACLU and the New Haven Clergy Association do not like it one bit.
Now, I don't know what was going on with this brother, but he was diagnosed with a mental illness. But this brother was a college student and he had no record before this. He had never been in trouble, nothing. And they don't have any kind of history they could bring up. Now, it was only this one cop, Brian North, who felt the need to pull out his gun and start shooting at this brother. And shooting as many times as he did at point-blank range. No other cop felt threatened enough to open fire. Now, of course, they didn't fire this cop or even give him a paid vacation. And they definitely won't be charging him. They just gave him desk duty until all of this could fly over. And as soon as things blow over and they become cool, he'll be right back on the streets again. And regardless of what his family thinks, if they're waiting on justice from them, they're going to be waiting for a long time.
Today, family, friends, and, of course, New Haven clergy came out very, very positive following their meeting with Middlesex State Attorney Michael Gaylor and New Haven State's Attorney, who is Patrick Griffin. A week after receiving the devastating news that 19-year-old Mubarak Soulemane had been shot to death by Trooper Brian North after an alleged carjacking and police pursuit, the family feels justice will be served.
They looked us in the eyes and told us that we should have faith in them. They're not gonna be biased, and we feel pretty confident.
They're especially comfortable with the fact that the New Haven State's attorney will now be assisting in the investigation.
That door has been open to us. We've built a relationship over the last several years.
Reverend Kimber said the family and clergy were also going to meet with West Haven Mayor Nancy Rossi about the incident, since it happened in her city, and some of the West Haven Police Department responded.
We're not so sure that some of those guys or girls should be put on administrative leave.
Now, when we slow down the video from Trooper Josh Jackson's body camera, you can see Mubarak Soulemane turns to his right and either reaches down or toward the back seat before coming up with his right arm and hand. Was this why Trooper North shot? Reverend Kimber believes not.
Well, they had tased him. Yes. They had tased him, and so that was a shock to him.
And in other words, what Reverend Kimber is saying is that the tasing caused involuntary body movements and caused his right arm to come up. So that's his theory behind it.
Now, the ACLU said one of the cops may have used a racial slur while they were chasing his brother. But of course the police denied it. But somehow this brother's family believed that because they told him they were going to investigate, that they're not going to lie to them. They said they looked them in their eye and they believed them. They had faith in them. And the police union, they're mad they can't investigate themselves. Although another branch of their organization is going to investigate them, they still have a problem with it. And some of us may believe because we have a different background, we're exempt from this system designed to destroy us. You're going to face the same injustices as all of us. And even though this family has faith in the state attorney and this white woman mayor, I haven't seen the cop face one punishment or get disciplined at all. He didn't even get a paid vacation, just desk duty. But they still believe they're on their side. But they know how to stay on code. And that's why it's important for us to develop a code and stay on that code. We don't have any other choice. We're dealing with a worldwide system designed to destroy us. Instead of having faith in that, we need to have faith in ourselves. Because when we realize who we are and what we could do, we will be able to build anything. We just have to be ready to protect it. And at the end of the day, we are all we got. It doesn't matter your beliefs, where you're from. We have to put all that to the side in the name of protecting our children, our elderly, our women, ourselves. And until we do, then the same thing will keep happening over and over and over.
There's a time in everybody's life, I think, when you just say, I'm going to do what I got to do because something has to change.
All the way through school, from kindergarten to high school, was never mentioned. During history class, it's ignored. It's as if it never happened.
I'd covered a lot of violence. We saw violence at demonstrations. We saw violence in Selma. But nothing prepared us for what happened at Orangeburg.
It just was a thunderstorm that rose and fell in the civil rights movement in the course of about 3 days.
We feel that there was this outsider that came in that took control of the group. And because of that, Orangeburg had its incident.
It was kept hush hush. I mean, local people don't even know what happened.
Those in power are going to do all that they can to assure that things remain the same.
Students and Orangeburg's black community mounted repeated protests. By 1968, they had desegregated all of the town's public accommodations but 3. The hospital, doctor's offices, and Harry Floyd's bowling alley, just a few blocks from the colleges.
Mr. Floyd, why have you not permitted Negroes to bowl at your bowling alley here in Orangeburg?
Because I have my own customers
that patronize me 52 weeks a year. They support me year in and year out. I need no other business.
Having a night demonstration, anybody who's been around civil rights for a long period of time know that's the worst time because things happen in night demonstrations. They always do. Bad things. With the police out there, it's night. They have their guns drawn. There's no barriers. They're out in the open field.
They were all close together, and you couldn't identify a person or what they had in their hands. We were prepared to do whatever we had to do to stop the situation from escalating.
Somebody threw a banister rail from this old house out there, and it struck a policeman in the face, just a lucky shot. But it hit him in the face and knocked him to the ground. Of course, policemen, when they see another policeman injured, they get a little bit testy themselves.
I had my camera, and I went out to take a picture of the highway patrol. They were in their stance, and they had the guns up. It was a very impressive, I didn't dream I could shoot those guns.
I didn't know what had happened, and I didn't anticipate what had happened.
When I started having patrolmen, I heard this click, like somebody cocking an M16 or a gun or something. After that click, da-da-da-da-da, bullets just start flying.
A wail goes up from back in the darkness at the crowd of people being hit and wounded. Shotguns, carbines, handguns, lasted for about 10 to 15 seconds.
A voice came up, stop, stop. I don't know who that was. I don't know who it was.
I remember hearing somebody laugh just before we realized we were being shot at. We thought they were shooting in the air.
I remember getting shot in my face and being spun around.
I get there at the same time they open fire. I get shot in the left shoulder, and I could feel it twist the body around when I'm going down to the ground.
I took one step that I can remember, and I got shot maybe this close to my spinal cord.
It's a wonder that more than were injured were injured. I thought every one of them was killed.
It was just shock and alarm at what had happened. And the attitude among the patrolmen varied from they got what they deserved to a couple of people almost so scared they were throwing up.
At least 28 students were shot and wounded.
What's the car?
3 students were killed. Samuel Hammond, a freshman studying to be a teacher, drawn to the bonfire out of curiosity, was shot in the back. Delano Middleton, a 17-year-old high school student, had stopped by the campus, as he often did, for a snack after basketball practice. He suffered 7 wounds, 1 in the heart. Henry Smith, age 18, a student activist deeply involved in his church and ROTC, was shot 3 times, once in the neck.
Yeah, it seems like he was just the kind of athlete, the kind of star that was perfectly cast on the Los Angeles Lakers. Los Angeles what? Cast on the Los Angeles Lakers. Kavita.
Did she not say it?
Like the kind of star that was perfectly cast on the Los Angeles Lakers. Kavita, if I could ask you to stay with us, we're going to go.
As I know, there's always a lot of hate, pain in the world, and there's always a bunch of terrible stories. And every once in a while, there's a good story. A good story comes out. The guy who got away with rape got his today. Kobe Bryant is gone. I'm here in Charlotte, the home of the team that originally drafted him. Maybe he wouldn't have raped that chick in Denver if he had stayed in Charlotte with the Hornets. But anyway, the point is, dude, it's
A political reporter for the Washington Post is now on administrative leave after tweeting a link to a story about rape allegations against the late NBA superstar Kobe Bryant. Sunday, Bryant's helicopter crashed in California, killing all 9 people on board. The same day, reporter Felicia Somnes posted the link, drawing considerable backlash online. The Post reports Somnes received threats of death and rape and was moved to a hotel after someone published her home address online. The Post says Somnes deleted the original tweet at the request of a managing editor. Members of the Washington Post Newspaper Guild are protesting Somnes' suspension, writing in a statement, quote, "We believe it is our responsibility as a news organization to tell the public the whole truth as we know it."
I want to make sure you don't have any weapons on you. Don't reach for anything.
Hold on.
Don't resist.
How am I resisting?
You're resisting a search.
I'm resisting. I'm not doing nothing.
Just put your hands behind you.
Man, I am not doing nothing.
We didn't say you were.
I'm not doing nothing, man. I am not doing nothing.
Hey,
I'm not doing nothing.
We were just going to pat you down for weapons, man.
Now, he just asked me for some weapons.
Well, now you're under arrest. Raise your shirt. You have a bulge in your pocket.
Dude, you just stood up here and said that you sit up here and see now and then I have no weapons on me, man. Man, come on, man. I'm not doing nothing, dude. Man, stop it, man. I'm not doing nothing.
No reason
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing
Quit resisting.
I'm on.
Quit resisting. You're about to get sprayed. If you don't stop,
you
don't stop, you're going to get sprayed.
I'm not doing it.
You're about to get sprayed.
You're doing something now. No, I'm not. Stop.
You're about to stop. You get it? You're under arrest, man.
Under arrest for what?
For resisting search.
Man, I did not do nothing.
Just follow the officer's instructions.
Why are you acting like this?
Come on. We're sorry that he acted that way in front of you, man. Do you know why he was over here? Or?
Yes, sir. He had just came to pick me up.
Oh, you live over here?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
And his car, the thing wouldn't go in reverse.
Oh, okay.
So,
I got you.
But his car wouldn't go in reverse.
Oh, okay.
How long did he sit here?
We've only been back here for about maybe 30 minutes because he called the dude to come help us.
How's it going, man?
All right.
Oh, you stay out here?
No, I'm thing it came loose. I'm waiting on the dude to come fix it. To put it in reverse.
All right. So the guy that
yeah, I just got off the phone with him. I know she probably called y'all.
Where'd he stay at?
Oh, he coming off on about South.
Why y'all meeting here?
Oh, cause I can't put it in reverse. My girl ship thing.
Okay. What brought you here though? You say you don't stay here. What brought you over here?
Oh, I came to pick up my little cousin, and when I went to try to put it in reverse, it wouldn't go in reverse.
Okay.
So this is it. So he finna come.
Your little cousin? Is it her?
Yeah.
Okay. Where'd she stay at?
Oh, she was in the front.
She was in the front? Okay. You don't have any weapons or anything like that on you, do you?
No.
Keep your hands up over here. Put your hand up there.
Hold on.
Don't.
Just let's
yeah.
Just raise your shirt and show us you don't have any weapons. No, I ain't got no weapons.
All right. I can see something bulging over there. Just making sure. Don't reach in your pockets or anything like that. What's your name? What's your name?
No, this is uncalled for.
No. We get a call on you. We got to ID you. So what's your name?
I'm not doing nothing wrong.
We're just responding to a call from citizens that once said there was some problems over here.
Oh, it's not no problem. As you can see, it's not a problem. I'm not causing any problems. I'm not doing nothing. I'm not hooping and hollering. I'm not causing any problems. I'm not doing none of that. So
the officer needs your name for his report.
You have a child in the car with you?
We're here to check welfare on the child. We have the right to find out who the people are that are involved.
It's not that going on. It's somebody involved. What is, I mean...
Is there a reason why you don't want to give your name? Why don't you want to give your name, man? And this take you 5 minutes to get out.
So we can go. I just told you. I have not committed a crime, sir. It's not a crime. It's not an offense. It's not nothing going on.
We had a call concerning you being in this vehicle and possibly being intoxicated.
Man, yeah.
So right now you're detained. You're being detained.
Come on. No, sir.
As far as that goes, you have to give us your name or you go to jail for failed ID.
What is the big deal about not saying your name? I'm gonna do it.
I mean,
Because he wouldn't let me do the pattern. Okay. I want to make sure you don't have any weapons on you. Don't reach for anything.
Hold on.
Don't reach.
How am I resisting?
You're resisting a search.
How am I resisting? I'm not doing nothing.
Just put your hands behind you.
Man, I am not doing.
Back now with the father claiming racial profiling after an incident at a Chesapeake store.
He says his daughter and her friends were just killing time at a beauty supply store when a manager locked the door and called police on them. A lot to sort out in this. 10 on your side, Aisha Tolliver joins us with more on how the police handled this. Aisha?
Well, guys, I spoke with a lot of people to try to get to the bottom of this, and the father says the girls just can't believe this all happened, and more than anything, he's disappointed.
A Chesapeake father wants justice after he says his daughter was among a group of girls wrongly locked inside a business for a crime they didn't commit.
My daughter and her friends won't ever forget about that. So I just think that's wrong.
Police say the incident happened last Friday at Coco Beauty Supply in the Parkview Shopping Center. The owner of the store says a little over a week ago, a group of girls stole over $1,000 in merchandise. So they printed off this surveillance picture of the suspects and handed them out to nearby businesses in hopes of catching them. Then this past Friday, Reuben Houston says his 16-year-old daughter and 3 of her friends were at the subway in that same shopping center when they noticed a security guard was following them. He says they walked into the beauty supply store a few businesses down. Shortly after entering, Houston says a manager locked the girls inside.
My daughter asked them why can't we leave? She says, you'll find out.
That's when Chesapeake police say they were called and responded about 10 minutes later. After a quick investigation, police realized the girls were not involved with the previous shoplifting incident and they were let go. Houston filed a police report and says he believes this was a case of racial profiling.
I personally think that everybody's going to be a suspect. You know, if you have braids or weave and you're black, I mean, even the kids are suspects now. I mean, I guess mine was.
I spoke with the beauty supply manager who locked the girls inside. She says it all started because a Subway employee called security on the girls, thinking they looked like the suspects. She sincerely apologized and says she only locked them in because the security guard told her to do so.
Now this afternoon, I did talk to that security guard. He called me and he denied telling her to lock the door. He says he was only involved because of the Subway employee calling him, and then he called police. A police spokesman told me that the girls should not have been locked in the store, and police are consulting with the Commonwealth's attorney to see how to move forward, including the possibility of abduction charges.
On social media tonight, it shows a Ball State student being removed from class by campus police.
Since then, the professor and the university issued an apology.
This afternoon, the student sat down exclusively with our Darius Johnson to share his side of the story.
Move your seat up, we can call the police.
That's not how Sultan Benson expected his marketing class to go with Professor Shaheen Borna on Tuesday afternoon at Ball State University.
When I walked in, someone happened to be in my seat, and instead of making a scene, making a commotion with the last 2 minutes, I just decided, after the professor asked me to sit in the back, taking my seat in the back. It is what it is. No problem, no harm, no foul.
Benson tells me he proceeded to take a seat in the back, plug in his computer, and open his notes. Halfway through the hour and 15-minute class, things took a turn.
So then he asked me to move my seat, and I just was like, why are you singling me out of everybody? And his excuse was because my laptop was open. Why am I moving in the middle of class? He legit stopped the class to try to move me. I've been back here on this PowerPoint.
After Professor Borna called police, Benson decided to walk out to avoid confrontation. He says officers encouraged him to file a complaint. I found Professor Borna on campus and asked him why he removed Benson from class.
I respectfully declined the interview.
As I continued to ask questions, Borna said Benson is allowed back in class Thursday, and he sent a letter apologizing. That letter reads, "A situation arose that I mishandled. As a professor at Ball State University, it is my responsibility to ensure that you and all of my students receive an excellent educational experience."
Are you being disruptive in the class? No, I'm not doing that.
No. As for Benson, he says he doesn't feel comfortable returning to class tomorrow, and he hopes the university takes swift action.
I really want Ball State to do something like, I don't really know, man. I really want them to do something that stands out, that's different. Like, I don't want nobody else to feel like this.
In Muncie, Darius Johnson, Fox 59 News.
And we just learned the student met with the dean of the business school this afternoon. He tells us they agreed to place him in a different class with a different professor effective tomorrow.
A 17-year-old girl is suing the Baraboo School District, accusing it of failing to respond to her sexual assault and racial discrimination claims.
Well, we first told you about this story last night, but today our Jamie Perez sat down with the teen to find out what message she has for the district.
What Baraboo is doing is not okay.
Deja Banks says she felt unwelcome in the Baraboo School District since the first grade.
I'm being told I couldn't play with people because of my hair or the color of my skin. I thought there was something wrong with me.
She said she was 7 years old when the harassment started.
Every time an issue occurred, I would go and tell a principal. I would go to the office and ask to speak to a principal, and I would tell them what happened, and they told me that they would handle it, but it continued to happen, so I felt as though they weren't doing anything.
Banks said the problems continued for the next 8 years. In a lawsuit filed in federal court Wednesday, she details how she was harassed and bullied for the color of her skin, was called the N-word on numerous occasions, was called a cotton picker at one point, and experienced numerous cases of being sexually harassed by other students.
Well, one person would help stick up for me, but because of that, she also got harassed.
Banks said she hopes her lawsuit can open up the door for administration to push for more education on being culturally sensitive and that sexual harassment of any kind will be dealt with appropriately.
It doesn't feel right. Like, I was born there, and it's heartbreaking not being able to go to what should be your home and not feel like home.
We reached out to the school district today, and we were told they have not been served that lawsuit yet and would not comment without seeking legal advice first.
Now at 10, it is a prom night photo to remember for all the wrong reasons. Teens appearing to make hateful gestures, including the Nazi salute.
Now, this photo of Baraboo High School students spread across social media, and tonight it's getting international reaction.
That school district is discussing next steps. New at 10, Ricky Mitchell was at tonight's school board meeting and has reaction from that community.
Several residents expressed outrage and concern over this photo, and they recommended certain action that they hope the school board will take. The photo posted Sunday evening shows a group of junior boys posing for a prom photo last spring in front of the Sauk County Courthouse. The caption reads #BarabooProud. Many of the teens have their arms raised in what looks like a Nazi salute. It has sparked outrage among some people living in the small community.
I grew up knowing that Nazism was wrong, and I don't see how they could get this far in their education and not know that.
Greg Sacra told the board that his father was shot by a young German boy during the war.
This photo is a demonstration of an absolutely despicable attitude.
One teen in the photo didn't raise his arm. He said he was unaware of what was happening.
If I knew what was happening, I would have not been in that photo at that time because I don't believe that is right.
A group of people met at the Sauk County Courthouse today to take a different photo, one with the symbol for love.
This is not representative of the Baraboo community.
Karen DeSanto is the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club of West Central Wisconsin. She says she's worried about the boys seen in that photo, and she told the board they are going to need support.
As we all make terrific mistakes, we are not perfect, so it's our job as adults to guide the kids into the best way that they can manage it.
A few community members said that they hope the district will provide additional education on the Holocaust. The district did not take any action tonight, but it did say that it's investigating this photo.
Jeffrey Perfumi, who's listed on the school's directory as Rocco, is now facing a battery charge because of an altercation with a student that happened during first period Tuesday here at Buddy Taylor Middle School. This video, released by the Flagler County Sheriff's Office, shows 47-year-old Perfumi grabbing and pushing a 14-year-old student out of a classroom. WESH 2 News spoke with that student's father, who tells us they immediately wanted to press charges after watching this footage.
I was infuriated as a parent. You know, you send your kid to school and you expect for them to be able to go get an education in a safe, sound environment. And then I saw the video, and that really took me over the edge.
An arrest report shows this started with the teenager playing music on his computer during class. Perfumi reportedly told the student to turn it down, and the student refused. The teacher then allegedly took the computer away, and the 14-year-old called him a racial slur. The student told investigators Mr. Perfumi grabbed him and turned him around and put him in a chokehold, and his feet were barely touching the ground when Mr. Perfumi shoved him out of the door. The student's father says his son should not have behaved disobediently, but he's also concerned his child could have been seriously hurt.
So you traumatize him mentally and emotionally, and not just him, but the other kids that have to witness that.
The victim's father also tells me he believes Perfumi should face more serious charges than a simple battery misdemeanor. In Flagler County, Chris Guardaro, WESH 2 News.
Flagler School Superintendent James Tager said in a statement, the actions of this teacher are not consistent with how we expect our educators to act and behave, and it will not be tolerated. We immediately removed Mr. Perfumi from the classroom following the incident and placed him on leave pending the investigation.
You're out of control.
Sure, okay.
Sure, okay. Videotape, because I'm going to the car and I'm shutting your phone off. Say to your nigger sister, hi nigger, I fucking hate you, fuck you, you ugly nigger bitch. I wish you were never born. You should have been an abortion. Fuck you, ugly nigger bitch. Fuck you, Hillary. Is that what you wanted? You got that.